Ghosts of War, A Taste of Death. When we're not in missions like the one in Samara, there's work to be done at the camp. Filling sandbags or stacking sandbags, flattening patches of bumpy gravel in some parking lot on the post, or PMCSing vehicles and getting ready for upcoming missions. Busy work, we say. Sometimes the command calls them missions to motivate us, I guess. We reserve the mission title for something at least quasi-dangerous. We'll call the on-point or inside-the-wire operations tasks. Most of the time, our tasks are boring and tedious. Sometimes they're strenuous and demanding. Sometimes they're meaningless and irritating. They're things that we've done 1,000 times, like PMCS things we could do in our sleep. But every once in a while, a task is as interesting as a mission. Today, like most other days, the majority of the platoon is out on various missions. Some are outside the wire convoying, and some are stuck inside the wire pushing gravel around, pulling security shifts, moving concrete barriers to make mortar cover, hauling lumber, and sometimes, or when supplies, around posts, loading tractor trailers. Some of the platoon is inside, other wires helping the line companies, staying at their camps, pushing around their gravel, moving their lumber and supplies, engineering stuff. Our job is always different. Every day, mostly, we change gears. This is a good thing. I hear about the snipers on post. Cool job, right, being a sniper? No. It downright sucks here. Snipers sit in a guard tower all day for 13 months now. Our camp gets mortared quite a bit, but the enemy is smarter than you think. During the hottest part of the day, they've figured out a way to fire mortars and disappear before a sniper or a QRF, Quick Reaction Force, has a chance to get them. They set up the mortar tube, aim it at camp, drop in a chunk of ice, and then drop a mortar round. When the ice melts, the round falls down the tube, gets primed, and kablam! A mortar lands somewhere on post, ruins something, and a whole camp of soldiers is squattering in mortar bunkers. Our enemies are cowards. They take pot shots at us from alleyways, drop ice in mortar tubes. They don't rush bases. They'd be killed instantly, probably by the snipers. So every day, this team of snipers, they sit in a guard tower with their binoculars, reporting suspicious vehicles and people to the post command. Not to downplay the snipers' role in the war. They save lives, and the potential for attack is high. But being a sniper probably sounded much more exciting when those guys are sitting in a MEP station back home. Engineers, though, were doing pretty much what they said we'd be doing in AIT. And at least our busy work keeps us busy. It gives us something to write home about, something to keep our minds off the fact that we're stuck here. Today, a few of us mill around the barracks. It's one of our off days. There isn't much to do, even in the way of tasks. We've already done our PMCSs. Cleaning the barracks. It's 10 o'clock, and half a dozen of us stuck without any mission or task, plan on hiding out for the rest of the day. The desert is starting to live up to its reputation. It doesn't rain anymore. In fact, I haven't seen a single cloud in weeks, and the temperature is climbing. It's only February, and the days are creeping up around 90. We hang out in a common area and play poker and dominoes. We watch movies and stay out of the heat. We play the guitar and share stories and laugh. Who cares? We got back from a mission 2 days ago, a convoy to drop off supplies for Charlie Company, and there's another mission coming up. Who cares? The commander, the higher-ups, that's who. Look busy, says Renninger, grinning as he walks by, heading towards the door. He understands our need to relax, but his words are what matter. If the guys in his squad are caught slacking around, Renninger is the one who gets yelled at. We are busy, Sergeant, says Josh Roman, pointing to the yellow bucket full of gray mop water. Renninger laughs and repeats, look busy. When he opens the door, blinding sunlight shines off our tile floor. He passes Lieutenant, and the two stop to talk quickly. Lieutenant comes inside, removes his patrol cap, and smiles at us. He sighs. Something matter, sir? I ask. He shakes his head and puts up a hand. This is his way of letting me know that something is wrong, but he can't talk about it. Some nonsense with the commander, I'm sure. Smithson says, Lieutenant, yes, sir. What's the best part about being in Iraq? Nothing. Wrong, he says. One way or another, you know you're going to leave. We all laugh. Even if they have to take me home in a pine box, he says, I'll be the hell out of here. Or if they have to take you in handcuffs because you killed the commander, I say. I saw him walking to chow with gloves on yesterday, said Komprowski. He wipes the dirt off his Humvee tire before he uses it, says Roman. It's okay, says Lieutenant. I used it against him. Neat freak. Doesn't even begin to describe your commander. I think he has a coaster for his coaster. We all laugh, not doubting for a second that he does. Before I went into the CQ, command quarters, I was out helping green PMCS our Humvee, says Lieutenant, and we greased it. We all cringe, laughing. Greasing a vehicle is one of the messiest jobs an engineer can do. Picture a tube of grease the size of a tube of raw cookie dough. It's pumped out at the end, and it always slops out on your hand. This grease, it doesn't even come off with soap. The ground just makes your hands dusty, so you wipe the grease on your uniform. So I sit down, Lieutenant says, right on his bed. God damn, says Sebastian Krowski. Seabass, we call him. And I can see him just crawling up the wall. My greasy uniform is all over his bed, and his eyes get as wide as golf balls. And I say, this is a nice room, sir, as I lean on his pillow. We're all laughing hysterically, picturing the commander squirm in his clean, pressed uniform as Lieutenant just lounges all over his bed. So he pulls out this little fold-out chair, and I'm like, no thanks. Your bed is so comfortable, sir. He probably washed the sheets as soon as you left, I say. Smithson, Lieutenant, I bet my rank he burned them. God damn, Seabass says again. Oh man, says Lieutenant, shaking his head. I'm going to get arrested for talking to you guys like this. It's not like we don't already know, sir, says Bucklew. Yes, sir, says Lieutenant. Hey, Zegwer, can I get you and two guys to meet Sergeant Whistler by those Humvees? You know, the ones that just came in? Yes, sir, says Sergeant Zegera. Zegera grabs Roman and me, and we follow him out to the front door. Our motor pool is filled with gravel to keep down the mud, and now that the mud is drying, to keep down the dust, dozens of vehicles are lined up, waiting for a mission or task or yet another PMCS. Near the middle of the motor pool lie two Humvees. Have you seen these yet? Zerga asks as we approach them. Roman says yes, and I say no. Come in a few days ago, he says. Guess a couple of guys died in them. This doesn't really affect me. This is war. People die. Two blown-up Humvees side by side. They're black and charred. Our task, scrounge for parts, armor mostly. We're to take off the armor that is still intact and put it on our own Humvees, some of which aren't armored at all. The smell is the first thing I notice. It's an odd mixture of scorched rubber, smoldering hair, burnt metal, and something else. There is an underlying stench of cooked meat. It reminds me of ham, but I know that's not what it is. It rolls my stomach a bit, but I deal with it. We poke around one of them for a minute or two. The things inside are coated with a dusty black residue. It's from the IEDs, improvised explosion devices, that destroyed them. We are curious. We poke around because this is a rare opportunity, this taste of death, right in the charred black seat where we're poking and prodding. That's what death does. It defines life. What would life be without death? What would death be without life? And what would peace be without war? Without the distinction, nothing exists. Really, death and war are everything. I feel immense sorrow for those who were killed here, for their families, but at the same time I feel immense relief knowing that there's one more KIA, one more statistic that isn't me. Whistler has already removed an armored door frame that is drilled in order to modify to our own. He continues to work off to the side of Ziegler. Roman and I poke around to the blackened, charbroiled Humvee. We find a piece of desert uniform. It's about 4 inches by 4 inches and a seam running through its middle. I hold it next to various seams of my own uniform, maybe an elbow, but it was found next to the gas pedal. It was a knee. It's gray from the bomb residue and particularly bloodstained. It smells like burnt ham. We find several pieces of shrapnel, thick, twisted chunks of metal. One of them has small vertical scratches running along the top. They are close together and parallel. They're from the metal band that held the IED round together. It's from a 133 or 155 round. I look at those tick marks, and it occurs to me that someone has looked at these ticks before. Someone who hates me, someone who doesn't even know me, someone who's killed my fellow soldier. I feel my eyes narrow, and I throw the piece of shrapnel back into the mess of miscellaneous junk sitting in the middle of the Humvee. We find a thin piece of metal. It's army green and shaped like a potato chip, as though it was melted, deformed, and solidified. It's a piece of an ammo can. The ammo can that held 5.56 rounds for a saw. Some empty 5.56 shells lie nearby. They're expended, but we realize that they were not shot. The actual bullets are gone. They had been blasted into a seat or a door or a person. The casings are all that's left over. But they were mangled and ripped apart. The IED blast was so hot and so fast that bullets were heated to a point beyond their tolerance. They looked off. Imagine how intense an explosion would have to be to cook off rounds. Imagine what that could do to flesh. Look at this, says Zager from the passenger side of the vehicle. The passenger door is riddled with ball bearings, hundreds of pebble-sized balls of metal packed together and exploding like buckshot. They're stuck halfway in the door and surrounding armor. On the inside of the armor, the door is wavy with impressions. There are no holes where the ball bearings made it through. The armor worked on the door anyway. The bottom side of the Humvee wasn't armored, and the shrapnel came through the passenger floor. The cushion on the passenger seat is army green, but coated in black of bomb residue and the brown of dried blood. Someone died right here. I imagine it in slow motion. The shrapnel, hundreds of scorching ball bearings coming through the floor, ripping the passenger apart like pulled pork, chunks of flesh and bone flying through the cabin. The aortas bleed out over their body armor, a hot, red river of life being lost. Enough. What do you want us to do first, Sergeant? I ask Whistler. I need the brackets from the passenger door, he says, and goes back to drilling holes in the receiving Humvee's door frame. I grab a socket wrench and reach into the crack between the seat and the door frame. Looking for a bolt, I see something in the dark space. It's a small square. I reach into the crack with my knife and poke it. I can't poke into it, but its peculiar texture is one which requires more examination. I pour water into the crack, and the square loosens up. It's spongy, and now I can stick it with my knife. Pulling it out of the darkness, I examine it closely. It's about the size of a quarter and roughly the same color. Like everything else in the Humvee, it's the gray-black of death. Curly black hairs stick out of it. Actually, they've grown from it. There are circular pockets of white. It's human flesh. I study it like I'm a biology student. Seabass usually busts my balls for picking my teeth with his knife of chow. I tell him it gets the job done as good as any toothpick, but this knife won't be picking my teeth anymore. I fling the meat back into the hole from which it was taken, like a burial. I continue unscrewing the brackets for the armored door. Zager, Roma, Whistler, and I joke around like we always do. We make fun of the commander and make fun of each other. We unscrew, unfasten, cut, grind, drill, and transfer parts from the old Humvee into the new ones. Then it comes time to transfer the armored roofs. It takes all four of us to lift the roof off the old Humvee and place it on the ground. We set it down and we stop, just staring at it, the two frames centered on either side, because the whole roof to tip forward when we put it down. It sits on the dirty, hard ground like wide armored seesaw, but you wouldn't want to sit on this seesaw. One half of the roof is covered with a dusty brown bloodstain. The saw gunner's blood. I imagine a young kid standing in the hole of a gun turret, loading the saw he's loaded 100 times. Click, clack, metal crunching together. But today, it's not a sound of power. It sounds like fate. I see the kid just standing there, helpless, as he takes a black cloud to the face. Hidden in the black cloud, hot ball bearings that end his life, right here on this tan roof. I imagine the kid driving the Humvee, some kid out of high school who didn't know what he wanted to do with his life, his panic as he cries to swerve from the IED, his guilt on the warm gunner's blood drips down the back of his neck from the roof. I should cry, I think. That's what normal people would do, right? But what does crying do for us? It doesn't solve our problems. It doesn't make us run faster or shoot better. But it's not this logic that is keeping me from crying. I can't cry because I don't feel anything. Seeing blood, speckled brown blood, takes the feeling to life right out of me. We're going to have to spray this off, someone finally says. We use a small forklift and bring the bloody thing over to the pressure washer, which lies on the other side of the motor pool. Whistler takes hold of the hose and begins spraying the dusty blood off the roof. The water carries the blood to the dirt. Recycling, I think. Whistler hits a pocket, maybe from the turret, and the blood water sprays into his mouth. Whistler throws the hose to the ground and spits out dirty brown water. I imagine that smell of burnt meat and metal. I imagine it in my mouth, and I cringe just watching Whistler spit out the dirty water. Zarek almost keels over because he's laughing so hard. "Oh, God," says Whistler. "Oh, God," cries Zarek. "You ate brains! You ate brains! Oh, my God!" "Shut up," said Whistler, wiping his tongue on his sleeve. "Zombie," Zarek points and laughed. "You ate brains! Zombie!" "I think I'm going to puke," says Whistler. But he doesn't. Zarek's laugh is maniacal. I almost admire it. Why cry when you can laugh? Over the next week, the four of us scrub, strip, and scrap the old Humvees. Part of the job is taking a putty knife to the foam that lines the inside of the roof. The foam is riddled with chunks of skull and shrapnel. It's splattered with blood and bomb residue, so we scrape it off and throw it away. Before we put it in the dumpster, though, we offer the pieces to Whistler. We just know he's starving for some good human brain. And we check the sergeant's eyes in the morning to see if they're glazed over and turned yellow. We watch our backs when he's around, afraid he'll try to sneak a bite out of the fleshy part of the shoulders or necks. We joke about the death we encounter, even these little tastes, because when it's humorous, it's not scary or sad. We can't dictate fear. We can't control sadness. These feelings are beyond our reach. But we can control sarcasm, irony. In a lot of ways, it's our humor that allows us to conquer death. It's our humor that lets us live. Even if it's temporary, just for a day, it's survival. We have to rise above death. We have to laugh in its face.